Janardana Sri Vasadi Gaura. So today on the occasion of observing and celebrating the Vyas Puja of His Holiness Krishna Goswami Maharaj, there are some very wonderful, important achievements that Maharaj achieved that I feel should be brought to the attention of many devotees. Some of us may not be aware of all the wonderful duties and services that Maharaj took up on behalf of Srila Prabhupada and his mission. Some of the ones that are really important is actually, many of his accomplishments are actually very historic. If you look at it, for example, Maharaj single-handedly opened more temples than practically anyone in ISKCON. His Holiness Raghunath Maharaj was just in Delhi over the last few days, and he was glorifying Krishna Maharaj, and I was hearing him, and one of the points that he raised that really struck me was this point. He said actually that there is no one in ISKCON who has actually opened more temples than Maharaj. Just in the Delhi area itself, he opened 18 temples. Can you imagine? 18 temples in the Delhi area. And he inspired devotees around the world to open even more temples, centers, everywhere. Maharaj was a GBC whose zone was not just only in India. His zone in India was so massive, it covers more than the entire Europe combined. The population in his GBC zone that he had to manage is more than the population that is actually in America, US. That's the kind of responsibilities that he took. And that is just his GBC zone in India. Maharaj was GBC in so many other parts. He was GBC in West Africa. He had so many countries in West Africa under him. He was a GBC in Canada for many, many years, right till the point when he was leaving. And in Canada, he worked so hard to build up the congregation there. Maharaj was also a co-GBC in certain portions of Russia, as well as what is formerly known as the Soviet Union. And he continued to have thousands of disciples there too. Maharaj was also a co-GBC in Mauritius. Many people did not realize that, but yes, he was a GBC in Mauritius, and he spent so much time developing the Mauritian Yatra together with other co-GBCs who were there. Many people don't realize that Maharaj also learned Russian, and that whenever he went to Russia, he would actually spend time. He, Niranjan Maharaj, Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, they all studied Russian together. and they would test each other's Russian, especially when they were cooking and serving feasts for the devotees in Russia. This is how Krishna Maharaj actually did his work. I cannot personally forget his achievements, because after my Guru Maharaj departed from this world, we were under him and Yashomati Nandan Prabhu. He was our GBC in Gujarat. And mind you, he already had all his duties across northern India, but he was also GBC for the entire Gujarat, which is not a small place. And so many temples, have come up in Gujarat under his guidance. And when we had the opening ceremony for ISKCON Rajkot, as well as ISKCON Dwarka many years before that, Maharaj supported us in both our projects. He came, he was guest of honor, and even after my Guru Maharaj departed from this world, he continued guiding us. He would come to Rajkot, despite being very busy. He would come, he would spend time with the devotees. He would ask us how we were doing. He would also guide us in making sure that we would do the Samadhi Seva to our Guru Maharaj. And this was how he was. The other point that I remember about him is in my little dealings with him, but I've heard so many of his God brothers speaking about him at the GBC level. They all say the same thing. Even though Maharaj spent almost 50 years as a member of the GBC, longer than almost any other GBC there. Probably him and Jiv Tata Maharaj and maybe one or two other Maharajas have been at the GBC for that long. And despite being in the GBC, despite holding such an apex position in the organizational structure, despite being a spiritual master with thousands and thousands of disciples, Maharaj was always approachable. Many of the disciples and devotees would have had the experience of going to visit him. Despite being so busy, he would have GBC meetings for the whole morning and afternoon and evening. And then in the evening, when everything was done, what would he do? He would go back to his room, and there would be a long line of devotees waiting to see him. And while we finished our meetings at 5:30, and we took a break, Maharaj would continue seeing the devotees all the way to 8:39, until Dashavatar Prabhu would have to really knock on his door and say, Maharaj, you really need to get rest. And when Maharaj finally took rest, it would be past 10. And Dashavatar Prabhu would tell me, Maharaj would wake up by 1:32 in the morning, and he would start his deity worship of all his deities. And he was such an expert devotee in caring for his deities. And you have seen videos, you have heard from devotees, how even till the end, Maharaj was so attached to his deities that he never forgot them and they never forgot him. And this is wonderful, such an example, he said. So many leaders also tell me, and I have also seen, that despite being of so much of stature, Maharaj was humble, he was caring, he was always looking out for devotees. Dashavata Prabhu, his personal servant, would complain that Maharaj never took enough service from him. Very often he wanted to move Maharaj from one point to the other, but Maharaj would sometimes just brush him off. And sometimes he didn't understand why he was doing that. Until later he came to find out from Maharaj that Maharaj felt very bad about taking service from a Vaishnava for himself. And therefore he said, as long as I can move, why should I put others into difficulty on my account? This was Maharaj's mood actually. And the other thing about Maharaj that was very important at the levels of leadership was many of his senior god brothers and Prabhupada's disciples, they always looked to him to resolve and bring about amicable solutions to potentially threatening problems of disunity in ISKCON. Many times when there were problems within our movement and they threatened to spill over and cause great rifts amongst our devotee communities, it was Maharaj who stepped in and who somehow pacified the leaders on both sides, who brought them to the table, and who would sit down and make sure that these problems were very well served and very well solved. For many, many years, many devotees don't realize also that Maharaj was the chairman of the Indian Bureau, which is actually the official organization for ISKCON in India. And it was a very important position because Maharaj not only cultivated the Indian Yatra all over India that way, but more importantly, he cultivated the political leadership in India. Which is why, Maharaj has probably met more prime ministers and outlasted more prime ministers than most other people in India would care to even think about, right? I remember when the Radha Parthasarthi temple was opened, it was the prime minister who came to open it. Maharaj always had very good dealings with the prime ministers of India, and because of his influential position, and he was much respected and loved, even the current PM was so respectful of Maharaj, and he was very, very distressed actually, genuinely, that Maharaj had actually departed from this material world. Jai Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Mai ki. So all this goes, what Maharaj did in India was to bring ISKCON to the mainstream. Before that, when Prabhupada was coming back to India, ISKCON was not mainstream because Prabhupada was bringing Westerners into ISKCON. And many Indians saw the Westerners and the ISKCON movement very often as something of a novelty. But Gopal Krishna Maharaj, through tireless efforts of decades of working with Indian leadership, brought ISKCON into bearing as a respectable, much loved and revered spiritual organization, which is very important. And I can tell you, Maharaj's influence, there's too much echo, Maharaj's influence did not only extend to India. When there were issues, for example, about ISKCON anywhere in the world, or when ISKCON was needed to be registered, whether it was in Mauritius or whether it was in Montreal, Canada, Maharaj actually exercised his influence even at the governmental level to actually bring forward the fact that ISKCON is bona fide, it is recognized, and therefore it should be utilized, right, as a service to humanity. And in that way, he smoothened so many creases. But for us, Gopal Krishna Maharaj is most important, a Param Vaishnava and a pure devotee of the Lord. He had the great capacity to influence people, to take people to Krishna consciousness, and he had the amazing ability to be personal despite having thousands of devotees. My personal regret is that Maharaj never personally set foot in Singapore. But I take solace and inspiration in that Maharaj trained his disciples so well, all over the world, and no exception to Singapore either. And his disciples in Singapore have served, and they have flown his flag very high. And it is so easy to work with Maharaj disciples around the world, because Maharaj's instructions to them is always flow with management. And it's so easy for leaders to work with them because he insisted that his disciples must be aligned with the local authorities. Otherwise it would be chaotic. So Maharaj, on this auspicious day, it is a very sad and devastating thing to all of us in the movement that you decided to wind down your pastimes and continue your eternal pastimes with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's gain in the spiritual world is our loss in this world. But because you exist as a Vaishnava always does eternally through your instructions, we pray that we will imbibe your instructions, we pray to serve your disciples, and we know you always wanted a united society and community. You always wanted us to be diverse and to respect our diversity, to celebrate it, but also to be united in all that we wanted to do. So if we really want to please you, Maharaj, and that we want to, we all endeavor and commit ourselves to doing exactly what you wanted us to do. Thank you, Krishna Maharaj, for coming into our lives and for giving us so much of inspiration. His Holiness Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Thank you, Advaita Prabhu, for organizing this together with all the disciples. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for glorifying Guru Maharaj. Now we will invite Dinavasta Prabhu, our President, to glorify Guru Maharaj. And after Dinavasta Prabhu, to Madan Mohan Prabhu.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Gopal Krishna Goswami Dinamine. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the verse 353, Mahatma Vidura says to Maitreya Rishi Muni, why pure devotees descend to this earth and live among us? I'll just read the translation. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are adverse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj thoroughly imbibed this quality and traveled around the world for more than 5 decades, inspiring countless souls to take serious devotional service. In our humble endeavor, we would like to meditate on 2 of His Holiness' transcendental qualities for our own purification and Maharaj's glorification. The first quality we'd like to emphasize on is the point of enthusiasm. As we all know, Maharaj is a very enthusiastic preacher. Neither age nor health issues could slow down his preaching at any time. While sharing his interaction with Srila Prabhupada, Maharaj said that in the initial days when there was no book distribution or rather no book production happening in India, His Divine Grace had asked him to start it. So in India, Maharaj arranged for a grand display of all of Srila Prabhupada books in a book house. But even after 1 month, not many books were distributed. So when Maharaj reported this to Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace said, my books are sold because of my enthusiasm of my disciples. And in this store, nobody is enthusiastic. That's why. Taking Srila Prabhupada's words to heart, Maharaj then engaged in this service with so much enthusiasm, inspiring so many others, not only to distribute, but also to translate in many Indian languages. Right? And thereby enabling Srila Prabhupada books to reach other languages as well. When, out of care and concern of his failing health and old age related challenges, devotees requested Maharaj to slow down his services a bit. Maharaj replied, I am Prabhupada's soldier. I've learned this from him and I will continue to do this only. Maharaj said, Prabhupada was always concerned about preaching, and even when he was physically not well, he did not stop preaching. And we have seen in Vrindavan, when he was not so well, and even when he had someone to help him sit, he would still virtually be whispering the purports. So we should cultivate this mood. The second point I'd like to meditate on is strong morning program. Irrespective of his travels or health condition, Maharaj was always present for Mangala Arati. He would sincerely perform the Arati Seva also to the deities, pay obeisances to them, ignoring or not minding any of his bodily inconveniences. When one of his devotees inquired, Maharaj, what is the secret of your success? Maharaj simply replied, strong morning program. With this, our humble prayers onto the lotus feet of Maharaj, that we imbibe at least a drop of his sincerity in serving Srila Prabhupada's mission. Jai His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Thank you, Devotees Prabhu. Now we will invite his Madan Mohan Prabhuji, and after that, Nandmai Prabhu.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Gopal Krishna Goswami Niti Namini. I want to thank Advaita Prabhu and all the disciples for giving us this opportunity to glorify Maharaj. One thing that really hit me in terms of Maharaj's quality is his spiritual influence and his spiritual remedy. I think devotees have already spoken that Maharaj's influence not only was permeating ISKCON, but it was also permeating in different political regions, political areas, but more importantly, it was actually permeating even other sampradayas. I was reading some of Maharaj's glorifications, and some of these glorifications actually came from the Gaudiya Math, it came from the Vallabh Sampradaya, it came from Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So it actually showed that Maharaj, even before being a popular or a very expert manager and leader, he was actually a pure devotee of the Lord. And this was actually recognized by everyone. And I remember two pastimes that I've read of Maharaj. There was once, and I think I've shared this before, but it's very important. There was one disciple of Prabhupada who had actually left ISKCON. And after many years, he actually came back for one of the important functions in Mayapur. And he writes that no one, none of his god brothers or none of those current devotees in ISKCON actually recognized him. Because he was in shirt, he was in pants, but he wanted to make a comeback. And the only person who recognized him was actually Gopal Krishna Maharaj. And he looked at this god brother of his and said, you are still here. I'm very happy to see you. And in the same way, a Gaudiya Math sannyasi writes, he says that when he was coming to the Delhi temple, it is quite popular that when a sannyasi from another sampradaya comes, we give them respect, as Maharaj kept saying in this lecture, as token. That means you're a respectable personality, you're coming in, but then you have to draw a certain line. But Maharaj had this great capability of spiritual discernment. Meaning to say, he never compromised on Prabhupada's standards. But he never imposed it on anyone coming into ISKCON. And the Gaudiya Math sannyasi writes that as he walked in, Maharaj went up to him and welcomed him, allowed him to do the arati, and brought him to his room and gave him prasadam, and at the end gave him a room to stay, and at the end he came out to the car as he was actually leaving Delhi. And this is very important for all of us to know, because as the movement grows, this is the kind of liberal, but at the same time keeping Prabhupada's principles intact. And this all came about in one purport I'm remembering, and I remember Maharaj when I read this. Prabhupada writes, Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great soul. And Prabhupada says, even if one is in the renounced order, he should never give up the regulative principles. He should worship the deity and give his time and life to the service of Krishna. He should also continue following the rules and regulations of austerity and penance. These things cannot be given up. One should not think oneself very advanced simply because one has accepted the sannyas order. The activities of Bharat Maharaj should be carefully studied for one's spiritual advancement. And as Devakinandan Prabhu already brought up, we actually understand how Maharaj actually worshipped his deities. Sometimes we may say we have deities in the temple, so the priority is given to the temple deities. But Maharaj gave priority to his personal deities as well as the temple deities as well to the devotees. So the thing that really hit me is Maharaj's potency and power to actually discern between spirit and matter. It actually requires great force or intensity in devotional service to actually do that. Maharaj always realized that it is not always black and white. And that is why through his maturity, he was able to attract not only those within ISKCON, but those who are outside. He stayed spiritually relevant, he was loving, and he was always open-minded. So I really pray to Maharaj today that it's a tall order, but I really beg for his mercy that personally myself and everyone who comes into this movement should have this attitude of Maharaj. Because when Prabhupada says for next 10,000 years this movement should exist, if we close up because of some personal agenda, then in the next 100 years the movement will end. But if we are like Maharaj, then whether it's in Singapore, whether it's in India, whether in any country in the world, ISKCON will always remain very relevant. So we thank Maharaj for setting this great example for us, and I thank you again, Prabhu, for giving me the opportunity. Jai His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki.
Thank you, Madam. We request Sarvan Prabhu to glorify Guru Maharaj. And after that, Balakrishna Prabhu, we request you to glorify.
Thank you, Guru. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale, Srimati Gopal Krishna Goswami Iti Namane. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Devi, Gauravani Pracharane, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshikarane. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet on the celebration of your Holiness's Vyas Puja. I would also like to begin by thanking Advaita Prabhu and all the other disciples of Maharaj for arranging this wonderful session and giving me an opportunity to glorify Maharaj. Personally, I didn't have too many opportunities for associating with Maharaj other than the odd occasions in Sridham Mayapur where I was there and he was there and I happened to be there at the same time. Likewise, I remember one visit to Bombay a couple of years back, where after the morning program, I was sitting outside in the courtyard and chanting my rounds when Maharaj, just along with one of his assistants, he was doing his walk. And as he approached, I offered my obeisances. He just looked at me sideways and then nodded his signature nod, as we all are quite familiar with. That itself was a great shower of his mercy. And I consider it to be a great fortune. We listened to his lecture a short while ago, and one thing that struck me was the sweetness of Maharaj's words and the power with which he said that. As sweet as they were powerful and equally instructive. For in all of us who have heard Maharaj's lectures, we know how he used to insist on following the discipline with regard to attending Mangalarti every day, reading Srila Prabhupada books, okay, and chanting without any offense, right? And Dinavatsala Prabhu already mentioned about Maharaj's determination to attend Mangalarti. Rain or shine, Vrindavan, Mayapur, any other temple that he had visited, he used to be the person on the altar doing the Mangalarti, irrespective of which other GBC member used to be there. And I read about one particular incident when Maharaj happened to be in Vrindavan Late in the night, he got a call from Delhi there was some emergency at the temple which he had to attend. So the temple president assumed that Maharaj would not be available for the next morning's Mangalarti program. Imagine his shock when the altar opened and Maharaj was there performing Mangalarti. So he had left Vrindavan for Delhi, come back to Vrindavan just in time to do the Mangalarti in the morning. So that shows his dedication. Again, in terms of his humility and his diligence in following Srila Prabhupada's instructions to the last letter, in true letter and spirit, is noteworthy. Once Maharaj was scheduled to give a Srimad Bhagavatam class in a particular temple, and the previous night he called one of his assistants and asked him which is the verse that he's supposed to lecture on. And suddenly he decided that he would speak on Chaitanya Charitamrita instead of speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam. And next day morning, half an hour before the class began, he instructed that particular disciple to inform the temple president that he would not be giving a class on Bhagavatam, but then instead he will be giving a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, as he was told, as he was instructed, the disciple went ahead and called the temple president. I mean, one may consider it's no big deal, right? He's an acharya, he's a great sannyasi, he's a GBC, he's such a realized personality. So what if he decides to change his mind and give a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita instead of Srimad Bhagavatam? And exactly what went in the mind of the temple president also. But then the disciple later on recollects that why is it that Maharaj insisted on informing the temple president about his decision? And as Devaki Prabhu mentioned a short while ago, it was because Prabhupada had given it as one of his principles that always work with the local authority. So here the local authority was the temple president, and Maharaj, irrespective of where he was, who he was, he felt that it was important to let the temple president know about the change in his decision, okay, to give a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita instead of the class on Srimad Bhagavatam. So like this, there are a number of pastimes which I have listened to as recounted by his disciples and other God brothers, and particularly with regard to his insistence on book distribution, the book distribution marathon, and the transcendental competition that happens between Delhi and Mayapur year after year. So these are all legends within ISKCON, and speaks volumes about Maharaj's mercy, compassion, and determination to serve Srila Prabhupada. Right? Finally, in conclusion, I would like to say one thing. We often hear that Srimad Bhagavatam can be understood in two ways. One, by reading the purports and commentaries of Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and so on. And the second is in terms of, and a more powerful way, is to observe the lives of great personalities, of great Acharyas, okay, who have led their lives on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Maharaj is one such personality who exemplifies or live the Srimad Bhagavatam on a day-to-day basis. Right? So if you want to know more about him, what better example than reading about him, hearing about him, and associating with his disciples. So saying this, I would like to conclude by thanking Maharaj for his mercy, his compassion, his instructions, and giving us his disciples in this wonderful Singapore congregation, who are truly an inspiration for all of us in terms of how to work collaboratively with each other in serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? And I seek his blessings that all of us remain committed to ISKCON and serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Happy Vyas Puja, and thank you very much, Maharaj.
Jai. Krishna Prabhu. After that, we go to Krishna Prabhu.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Gopala Krishna Goswami Namini. Hare Krishna. I want to thank Apurasi Prabhu for giving me this opportunity. I was not scheduled to speak actually, so I haven't prepared anything. But there are three things that came to my mind that I'm personally grateful to Maharaj, that I wanted to mention about Maharaj. The first thing is what my Guru Maharaj told in a lecture. He was talking about Maharaj, and if you know my Guru Maharaj, you would know how much he is into natural medicine and all that. And he was referring to the time when Gopal Krishna Maharaj, I think, had a heart attack or something, and Guru Maharaj was saying that instead of resorting to English medicine, Gopal Krishna Maharaj actually went to natural side, and he underwent some natural treatment, and he came out of that difficulty without undergoing any surgery or anything. And Maharaj was saying that he increased his morning program, reading, Mangalati and all that. And Maharaj was saying that we should follow this example. And I heard that from Guru Maharaj. I was really inspired to follow that example. The second thing that's very inspiring for me naturally is Maharaj's mood towards deity worship. You know, we all know how much he was into Mangalati. You know, I saw Maharaj for the first time in Rajkot temple opening, and the moment the altar opened, I was shocked to see Maharaj doing Mangalati. I did not expect that at all. You know? So I was really shocked to see that at that age, you know, he was really at that time he was already very old, but even then he insisted on doing Mangalati himself to the deities, and I was really inspired by that. And as Dave Guru was saying, we all know how much Maharaj served his personal deities, and he never forgot them at all. I mean, even in the last moments of his life, we all saw that video how Maharaj was doing arati to the deities even when he was unconscious. That shows how conscious he was about his service to his deities actually. Very personally, very inspired by that actually. And the third thing that's very personal to me is when Maharaj left his body, I was hearing the will that Maharaj left. One of the disciples was reading, and one small point that really struck me was one of the instructions that he gave on the list of many instructions was that we should all chant 25 rounds on Ekadashi. You know, till that time, I was not really very particular about doing that. You know, whenever time permits, I used to do. When time did not permit, I was not so conscious of completing 25 rounds on Ekadashi. But when I heard Maharaj mention that as his final instruction in his will, then I understood how important it is to chant those 25 rounds on Ekadashi. So since the time Maharaj has left, I've been trying very hard to complete 25 rounds on Ekadashi. And the last Ekadashi was his appearance day. And I was really praying to Maharaj that he give strength for me to continue chanting this 25 rounds on every Ekadashi. So personally, Maharaj has this permanent effect in my life. So I'm really to Maharaj for giving that instruction. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you for all the disciples in Singapore that Maharaj has left such wonderful examples in his disciples actually in Singapore. They fill up half the roster in the deity worship roster, I think, and they're all expert and they're very easy to work with, as the Guru said, you know. So we're really grateful to Maharaj for leaving such wonderful disciples in Singapore. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Jai His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki Jai.
Thank you, Gopal Krishna. Now, Deva Krishna Prabhu. And after that, Sri Gana Prabhu.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Gopal Krishna Goswami Devakinandan. I had the great fortune, of course, in Pune, and Maharaj was a local GBC. But before I start there, if we go back in history of ISKCON, when Prabhupada left, and as in all big movements, the founder leaves the planet, it's always a time of memorial. We see now India, ISKCON India, growing phenomenally at a pace. Look at book distribution, look at temples. Even before Maharaj left, he actually laid down a cornerstone for another temple in Dehradun. So in those times, Indian leadership stood sound in the form of Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj in those 80s and 90s, when there was hardly any leadership in India. Jayapataka Swami, Gopal Krishna Goswami, Loknath Swami, And today we are seeing that result. When you see this India growth, no, it started way back there when these leaders, stood firm, didn't let the movement go away what Prabhupada had started. And this is one of the most incredible contributions of Gopal Krishna Maharaj. Of course, worldwide is there, but ISKCON India, he gave his blood and sweat for it. And the next one, of course, is ISKCON Pune story, which Maharaj started again. Prabhupada came to Pune in 1976 on the invitation of Malhotras. Of course, Prabhupada went to Mahabaleshwar, but then finally they were looking out some place in Pune. And we got a colonel's bungalow. That's where the temple started, Radha Kunj Bihari temple. And Maharaj would come quite often. First time I saw him was 2001. And Maharaj gave and his classes were, you could see his classes are very easy to understand. But you can ask Chaitanya Chak Prabhu. In the background, he's highly scholarly. It's a total contrast. When he was asking him tips about how to write books, and articles, his know-how on contemporary science and what's happening and how he would connect it with pure Krishna consciousness was something mind-boggling, which normally we don't get to hear from his classes. So that was Mr. Bat. So we had this very small temple, and the congregation was the age of 18 to 22. That was the maximum congregation, which means non-earning people. So temple would be running very on a threadbare, And actually temple was investing in the congregation actually. Normally congregation provides the temple, but here was a case where temple was providing because they were young boys, and we had very few grastas there. So right from there, Maharaj would continuously keep coming. And I would wonder, how much time he's giving to this temple. By God's mercy, Krishna's mercy, there was Mr. Banerjee. And he was a good friend of Malhotra's. Now Malhotra had association of Prabhupada in 1976. So Banerjee had a bungalow, but he didn't have any children. It was in the heart of the city. And he had decided with Malhotra was following up with him, but he said, I will give this bungalow to somebody, to anyone except ISKCON. He had decided that. So Gopal Krishna Maharaj got to know, and he went and met Banerjee. Maharaj gave again, his heart and soul to Banerjee. So much so that within some months, Banerjee got convinced, and he wrote his will that once I pass away, this bungalow was, that money, it cost a lot of money. It was very expensive bungalow. It will go to ISKCON. But he said only on one condition, that you can please take care of my Balaji, get a Balaji date. And Gopal Krishna Maharaj built a beautiful hilltop temple in Pune that is the only Balaji deity in the whole ISKCON world. It is worshipped now more gorgeously than Banerjee could have ever imagined. And now you see the temple Maharaj built by that money and created Radha Vrindavan Chandra Temple, which is known as New Vedic Cultural Center. And that's what Maharaj created. And on my personal note, I had some interactions, and especially was most heart-touching was Maharaj's personal connect. He would come for morning walk, enter, and even the Chaukidar of ISKCON Vrindavan, Maharaj would hold his hand. Sab theek hai? How is your family? And I was shocked. He was the man, the GBC man in India, and he's asking the Chaukidar, how are you? I had marriage anniversary. He saw me, he said, oh, it's a marriage anniversary? And he was asking all the leaders there, how about his prasadam? He's worried about the prasad, because the Govinda's restaurant was closed that day. He knew. And last, of course, when my father was leaving his body, it was a very emotionally, I was in a little turmoil. And it happened to be RGB meeting in Pune. And I still remember when I was leaving, meeting my Gurudev, Radhanath Swami Maharaj, I came out, and Gopal Krishna Maharaj saw, and he looked at me, he said, why are you crying? I said, no, Maharaj, my father might be leaving, And he said, do you have his picture? I said, yes, Maharaj. So I showed him. And Maharaj looked, no rush. And he looked and he said, what he was doing, what service he was rendering. I said, Maharaj, book distribution. 15 years at book distribution. That's Maharaj's heart. And he said, oh. And he looked very carefully. And after I think a pause of 5 seconds, he said, why are you crying? Prabhupada right at this moment is taking him back home, back to Garden. He's holding his hand. And the last words my father in his life of 69 years heard was Gopal Krishna Maharaj chanting for him. They connected on phone. He was, and I guess that was the last breaths of my father. Because immediately my brother called me, he said, mission accomplished. So thank you, Maharaj, for your love, for your mercy, for your inspiration in Pune, so many times, so many Bhagavatams, and how you included all of us in those classes, in those sessions. Stupid questions we would ask you and you would give those answers. But what stood out for me was your integrity and loyalty for Prabhupada's movement. Never ever a time, and I feel very fortunate that I came to Krishna consciousness in one of your GBC zones and I learned this art of, I'm trying to learn this art of loyalty and integrity to Prabhupada's movement. In not just in words, but I guess in spirit as well. So please bless me, Maharaj, that I continue to serve in Prabhupada's movement as a servant of the servant, and someday, one fine day, please you as well. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. We invite Srinai Prabhu. He will lead his Vyas Puja offering and Mohan Krishna Prabhu's as well. And after that, Adi Gati Mata and Param Gati Mata.
Actually, I'm finding it really very tough to talk today. It's one of the first Vyasa Pujas. I'm missing it directly from the. So, in so many years, I think 20 years, something like that. I've never missed Vyasa Puja from the. So, then 2 days back, when Parma Puja was asking, Guru, this is the first time I think you missed. I said yes. I'm finding it very difficult, but I'm trying to cope up. So, I'm very fortunate and happy that we have wonderful devotees. So, I won't take much time, but I'll just tell you a few passages that I want to talk about Guru Maharaj's. One portion today, I will talk only about a very small portion of his love and affection. I can talk very elaborately about various things, but considering the time Ajanta Prabhu has given me, I'll just shorten it within 2-3 minutes. So I'll try to shorten it within 2-3 minutes. So Guru Maharaj has got a special favor for Singapore devotees, Singapore congregation, especially the disciples and all of them. So I'll just talk about 2-3 very specific incidents. Today I'll talk about only the love and affection Guru Maharaj had for everybody. So all the disciples throughout the world, many devotees, whenever we say Guru Maharaj's pastimes or this one is the walking pastime called the Chidiya pastime. Chidiya pastime is something where whenever he goes for a walk in whatever situation, whatever place he is, it's called Chidiya pastime, where he ensures that he doesn't step on any kind of ants or any kind of small ants on the floor. So everybody whomsoever have been with Maharaj behind walking, they have undergone this. So one time, very long time back when Guru Maharaj was walking, so I was also walking behind him so fast, and then suddenly he stopped me. He ran, stop. So then I said, yes Maharaj, please look, there are some ants. So I was like, okay, looking here and there, and then Maharaj was very particular. Then I asked him, what is it Maharaj? Then he gave me one secret, and I'll tell you one secret. So what he told was, eyes on the ground, ears on the sound. Okay. So he hit me hard. So then I was just thinking, then you can't have done it, then you come back to me. Then I realized eyes on the ground means a lot of meaning to it. So on this we have to take care of everything on the ground, meaning we have to be very affectionate to the entire world, entire community, including the small hands. And while chanting, ears on the sound, which means we are supposed to hear what we chant. So he gave a very wonderful word, so I still remember that. So. And then the second one that I wanted to quickly add is from our own congregation. So many years back when I think Mitai Prem and Adi Gayatri were married, and then one Vyasa Puja, Adi Gayatri Mataji came along with us. So I think at that point of time they didn't have children. So it was very fully packed in Delhi. No accommodation, it was very difficult. And then we got just one small room, and then we all just rushed there. Like we were just trying to stay there, 4 or 5 of us together. One moment when we had a chance to meet Guru Maharaj, first thing is asked is, how are you? And then we said yes to Maharaj. Then she asked, oh, Mauritian girl, how are you? Then Maharaj immediately understood, just by seeing, he can read our minds. Many times I have faced the situation, and he can just read it in the mind, and then immediately he understood. Okay, then he called the magician person who was coordinating, and then immediately arranged the room. Okay, and then he arranged the room, he arranged prashad and everything, and it was like completely shocked because we were nothing, we were nowhere. Sometime, I mean, I'm just thinking about many years ago. So after that also, when Guru Maharaj meets us, he just first thing will ask us, how are the Singapore congregation devotees? Then he knows few of them. Okay, then he will ask about, he remembers Mataji very well. So like that, it went on. Then afterwards, we had all the Jurong devotees getting initiated in Puri Yatra. And after that, one time, along with Devaki Prabhu, we were in Tirupati. So that time, I will talk about Mohan Krishna Prabhu. Many of you might know Muthu Krishna Prabhu, Mohan Krishna Prabhu. He is a very silent performer. So today I will just tell about one past time about him. So he was not ready during initiation earlier time. So he just called when we were there in Tirupati. He just said, "Can I have darshan of Guru Maharaj?" Then I said, "Yes, please come." So he came there and he was standing in front of the room trying to meet Guru Maharaj, but it was completely busy. Like as Prabhu mentioned, he was going out, going here and there, and then all the 3 days was like Prabhuji was just standing in front of the door. Okay, then he was just, when Guru Maharaj goes out, he will just do some seva, but he was standing. Then Guru Maharaj noticed, then I told Maharaj he has come from Delhi, he has come from all the way from Singapore. Then Maharaj didn't say anything. Exactly after third day, evening, GBC was about to over, and then I was standing, I came along with Maharaj, and then the Devaki Prabhu came. Nothing, no talking, nothing. So we were just standing inside, Devaki Prabhu came inside the room, and then I was standing this side, Guru Maharaj sitting, and then Devaki Prabhu was standing there. And then Guru Maharaj said, "Call that devotee." Call that person. Then Muthu Krishna Prabhu, Mohan Krishna Prabhu came and sat there. Then you won't believe it. Then Guru Maharaj just turned Devaki Prabhu and said, "Devaki," like that said. Then Devaki Prabhu also didn't say anything. "Yes, of course, Maharaj, of course." No words talking. Okay. Then Maharaj turned towards him and said, "I'm very sorry. I made you to wait for 2 days. Tomorrow you get initiation." Nothing. I mean, after the all papers, whatever, everything happened. So Guru Maharaj is so merciful. Just by, I was like, nobody, I mean, even the secretary was shocked actually. So Maharaj just turned towards Devaki Prabhu. Devaki Prabhu also didn't say anything. Of course, Maharaj. That's all. So all, he reads up everything. Okay. And then after that, many other devotees got initiated. But one thing that we always had is what, during the Corona time, and whenever I met Guru Maharaj said, "Hey, you know, Shinarayan, I have my disciple, he is a president now, you know." "Yes, Maharaj, I know. He is doing wonderful service, you know." "Yes, Maharaj." Devaki Prabhu told, yes. See, during Corona period also, he is doing so many service. "Yes, Maharaj, I know." He is none other than Advaita Prabhu. Okay. So he used to tell so many things. He is very, very fortunate with all the devotees. One unfulfilled desire that we always have whenever we speak with Devaki Prabhu is for Guru Maharaj to come to Singapore. Many years, every time whenever I ask, Guru Maharaj will say only one thing. What he will say is, "Shinarayan, that is not my GBC zone. Why are you calling me? Why are you calling me?" Then I said, "Maharaj, one time you just on the way, like transit this way, that way, whatever." No. Then but he told me one thing. "See, if I come to your GBC, I have to report to GBC." I told Maharaj, "You are the chairman of GBC." He has to prepare the report. Then they will ask me questions. "Why did you go there? What was your purpose?" So Guru Maharaj was, as everybody mentioned, it is not that at that particular position or that particular stage also, he maintained that particular thing. Okay, so I'll just stop here. I can add on more. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhupada ki jai, Maharaj ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu. We invite Adivati Mataji and after Prem Radhi. Mataji can come forward.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Goswami Nityananda Prabhupada Sasanitya Ya Prakasha Vidya Charu Mritava Sahu Dear Gurudev, please kindly accept our humble obeisances. We wish you a very happy 80th Vyaspuja. First and foremost, we would like to thank you for everything and accepting us as your disciples. We consider ourselves very fortunate to be your disciples, And on this auspicious day, as we celebrate your Vyas Puja, we pray that you will always shower your blessings on us. This year marks your 80th birthday, and we had many plans on how to make this festival as grand as possible. While you have crossed over to continue serving Srila Prabhupada, we feel the immense loss here. Stringing the garland today for you was very different from previous years. There was sadness, but at the same time happiness. Dear Gurudev, while we are trying to serve you and Srila Prabhupada, we would request you to continue guiding us so that we do not commit any offenses and perform our services to our best capability. May your 10 instructions always hold our lives and guide us. Once again, Gurudev, thank you for everything that you have done for Srila Prabhupada, and we hope that one day we shall also perfect our lives and follow in your footsteps and gradually come to you. Seeking your blessings, your insignificant servants, Nitai Premadas, Adi Gayatri Devidasi, Chandramani, and Gauranga. Srila Gurudev ki jai.
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण कृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमते Devakinandan Swami Swami Nityanandi. Dear Guru Maharaj, before offering this brief glorification, I must admit that I feel totally unqualified to do so. You have always mentioned in your glorification for Srila Prabhupada that he has been the Vaikuntha man, but I must say, since the college days, you have been the Vaikuntha man for me, who followed Srila Prabhupada and guided us throughout your journey about this divine mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with your character. As we all know, it's not very easy to get impressed with spiritual personalities in our college life, but you have been that crown jewel who have inspired me to begin this spiritual journey in ISKCON. Your absence is really felt each and every day, and life is never going to be the same. While it's natural to feel sorrowful, we know that you will always live in sound or via your divine instructions. Connecting on the passing of the great devotee Haridas Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur wrote that he reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die, when thou art still living in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy name around. Acharyas have rightly said that just like it is impossible to fully describe the transcendental glories of the Lord, it is also impossible to fully describe the glories of Guru. Many of your godbrothers and our seniors, even present here, had your direct guidance and associations to work with you, and have been amazed with your management capabilities. And out of all types of your pastimes, Guru Maharaj, I personally feel inspired to execute a stitch of it in your guidance. On this auspicious day, we beg to pray for your mercy so that we may continue to live with your divine instructions here, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
We invite Tonipati Prabhu to give his offerings.
Namo Vishnupada Paramahansa Bhagavata Ashwata Srimad His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ji. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dhanya Pranam at your lotus. You are my eternal self-realized spiritual master who can teach Krishna to me. And I humbly beg forgiveness for any offenses I may have committed at your lotus feet, knowingly or unknowingly. My heart aches deeply since you left this material world, but I find comfort knowing that you are still with me, guiding me in spiritual activities. I am a very fallen soul, but by your mercy, I am trying to engage in spiritual life. Your instructions remain with me always. I remember how you greeted me with a big smile at ISKCON Gurgaon, Sector 45, and held my hand. I recall how you blessed me to stay engaged in spiritual activities. You are my only spiritual master. The first time I saw you, I felt a strong bond between us. I remember how you personally oversaw the temple construction, even going to areas where others, devotees, were afraid to go. You always see the good qualities in everyone, and though I have none, you still accepted me as your disciple. I lack spiritual knowledge, but your lotus feet and your big smile have helped me to grow. I long to speak with you more and more and hear Harikatha from your lotus mouth, all filled with the holy name. I remember your long 14-hour slide, where while others slept, you chanted without wasting a single moment. I recall how you gave a class to devotees who had chanted 60 rounds in one of the camps during 3 hours of kirtan and then 3 hours of class, both in the morning and the evening. I don't have the strength to focus my mind on spiritual activities, which is why I constantly beg for your mercy and guidance. I know you are always with me, blessing, guiding, and protecting me from this material world. But still feel deep pain because your physical presence is no longer here. Yet I also feel happiness because you have returned to the spiritual kingdom to serve your spiritual master and Lord Krishna. I need your special lotus mercy so that I can survive in this material world, always thinking about your words, your lotus feet, your big smile, and your spiritual activities, and never become entangled in worldly affairs. I am your Das. Please protect me from this material. I am your very insignificant disciple, Rani Bhakti Das. Wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, Sridhar Prabhu just read Mohan Krishna Prabhu's offering because he has to leave to pick up his son from the airport.
ईश्वराय कृष्ण प्रस्तावपत्र श्रीमते गोपाल कृष्ण गोस्वामी नाम प्रभुपाद सहित प्रसिद्धि च प्रचारं कृत्वा साधुभक्तान् जनाः. Guru Maharaj, we don't know whether we are qualified to Guru holiness. Even though we are not qualified for your mercy, you initiated us and accepted us as your disciple and give us opportunity to do devotion service, festival and get his blessings. We were in the thought of plan of attending your special celebrations in Delhi this year and have your darshan and get your blessings personally. But we were unfortunate that we are not able to have it and accept it as Krishna's plan. We understand that even though you are no longer with us in your physical form for this Vyasa Puja, you will continue, but we are very sure that we are there and then you will be continuing to shower your mercy upon us to do our devotion service in a better way. And one day or another, we are very sure that you will bring us back to Godhead. Those currently serving Krishna. We are sure that without your mercy or blessings, we won't be able to do like whatever we are now. We don't know what pious deed or what we did in our previous life. By Krishna's mercy, we got a fortune to be your disciples in this birth. With this opportunity, we will try to do our best to do our devotion service with full faith in your blessings and Krishna. Guru Maharaj, when you were alive, we took your association or parts as granted and we did not realize the importance. But now we are very much longing for it. Respected Guru Maharaj, knowingly or unknowingly, if you have committed any offense unto you, kindly forgive us and keep us always at your lotus feet, serve Krishna and Vaishnavas. Your insignificant disciples, Mohan Krishna Prabhu, Das and Jagadali Devas. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So I'll just talk about 2-3 pastimes which I heard from senior devotees. One of from Gauranga Prabhu. So he was mentioning that there was a meeting in Joe Temple, GBC meeting, and Maharaj was there, so in charge for hosting everybody. So he invited Maharaj, everybody was honoring Prasad and Govinda, and he asked Maharaj to join all the GBC members. So Maharaj told Gauranga Prabhu that I have opened so many Govinda's restaurants from 1971, but I have not eaten in a single restaurant ever. So that was Maharaj's sadhana. Many may not know, but the Ritwik temple in India, they were about to start construction of a temple in Vrindavan. And Madhu Pandit Prabhu called Maharaj and he said, Maharaj, there is delay in construction, so if you can visit the site, then it will help us to start the construction. So Maharaj said that, okay, let me get back to you. Then he called, I think, Bhakti Charu Maharaj and other GBCs discussed with them, and then he called back Madhu Pandit, and Maharaj went to Vrindavan at their site to visit. So that was Maharaj's dealing. Whenever Madhu Pandit visited ISKCON Delhi, Maharaj always offered him the red carpet welcome. There is one senior devotee of Maharaj who was glorifying Maharaj, saying that he bought a BMW car long time back from Maharaj. And so Maharaj was returning from an overseas trip. And when he was asking devotees from temples, nobody was ready to go with him. When he was surprised that why nobody is ready to go with me when we go, everybody goes when we welcome Maharaj, when he returns from a trip. When he reached there, and then Maharaj saw the car at the airport, Maharaj asked, his name is Burijan Prabhu, he asked, whose car is this? So he said, Maharaj, this is your car. Then Maharaj, Burijan Prabhu said, Maharaj for 30 minutes operated him like a nursing dev at the airport itself. And he said, I have not sit in the car. Now then he realized that why no devotee joined him to welcome Maharaj. Then Maharaj told him, he said 30 minutes he got all the operation. But two main points he mentioned. One is that many of his godbrothers, Maharaj godbrothers, does not have a car. And how will they feel when he will travel in BMW? And second thing Maharaj said, when I go to donors asking for donation, when they will see me traveling in BMW, what they will feel. So he said, after the 4 days there was a Vyas Puja. Maharaj told that go and sell this car. So on the Vyas Puja day when Burijan Prabhu was trying to garland Maharaj, Maharaj didn't accept the garland. He asked, did you sell the car? Maharaj, who will buy the car at 9 o'clock at night? And tomorrow I'll sell it. So you promise me you will sell the car? He said, okay, I'll sell the car. Then Maharaj allowed him to go in, and next day, Burijan Prabhu sold the car and reported back to Maharaj. Yeah, so I'll conclude because we'll sing, Devi will sing a bhajan and then we do Pushpanjali and Guru Puja. There are many more things to say, but we'll do some other time. Hare Krishna.